All right, good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome to another episode of the Engineering Leaders podcast series, where we are actually bringing together engineering leaders from various fields to pick their brain experiences on how a young aspiring engineer can really succeed and have an exciting career ahead of them. So, today we are joined by Karthik, who is currently working as an independent consultant for startups, where he brings his many years of field experiences as an established leader in the sales, business development, and consulting expertise, in many reputable tech, logistic, supply chain, and engineering institutions to really help startups expand and scale their business with right business practices and leadership. So before Karthik went into sales and business development, Karthik actually started his career as a marine engineer in India. So he eventually transitioned to take on a sales manager role in a new company, and eventually went on to pursue a career path in sales, business development, and also consulting, where his long list of accomplishments actually includes, but not limited to, driving strategic cultural change in his previous organization, where he actually fostered a positive team culture that reduced sales cycles by about 50% in only 18 months. That's really crazy. And reduced operational costs by 40% within the first 24 months under his leadership. And he managed to achieve 7 times revenue and 2 times client growth in the last 5 years, and also 42x revenue growth in 4 years in the previous roles that he was in, by helping organizations align important sales and business operations with their overall mission. And I think one of the most notable one, I feel, is really helping to create a vision and strategic plan for one of the organizations he was previously, and executed it to completion that helps them not only increase their revenue, but also led to a successful exit for the investor in 2020. So without further ado, let's welcome Karthik here on this show. Karthik, I'm really, really very excited to have you here today for you to share, your life journey and also your role as a sales and business development leader that came from an engineering background.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kenny. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be part of your series of podcasts. And before I start with my journey, I would like to say that what Kenny is doing is pretty brilliant. So because he's trying to help engineers who are looking to a different career path. So I really want to appreciate that. And Kenny has given me a good introduction. So I started my career as a marine engineer, and I was a marine engineer for about 9 years. And along the way, I would say that I kind of fell out of love with purely technical management and decided to pursue business management. So that is where I moved on to doing an MBA in UK, and then doing some consulting assignments, after which I did some work for an automotive startup that led to a successful exit for the investor in about 5 years' time. After which I came to Singapore as a sales and marketing leader for a maritime ERP solution provider, where we grew the revenue 7x, leading to a management buyout of the parent organization. What I do currently is I'm using my skills and experiences to help startups grow. It is because startups, they generally have an idea, and beyond that, they don't know how to scale up, plan, and grow. So that is where I'm helping startups in Singapore.
Interesting, but I'm just curious because there's many, I believe there's many industries that you have helped, as a consulting. But why startups in particular?
Why startups in particular? Because I think during the pandemic, there were quite a number of startups happening in Singapore. Although the business had slowed down, but there were a number of startups that started operations during the pandemic. And typically what happens with the startup is they have an idea, they probably have a little bit of funding, but they don't have a plan to scale. Why they don't have a plan to scale is because they don't have a very targeted sales plan or sales and marketing plan. Plus, most of them they don't develop a vision for what they want to achieve. So these are the not having a plan and not having a vision. This is what generally stymies startup from growing. And another could be is because they had an idea, but they have not tested the market fit for that idea. That also happens with some startups.
So yeah, but actually, you mentioned a lot about like business and how you actually now you're actually helping businesses. But you came from a marine engineer background, and you started your career as an engineer, which is more technical in the job scope. But eventually actually moved on to something that's a little bit non-technical, starting as your role as a sales manager, which was very different from what you are doing currently. So, could you share, what made you actually make that transition, and how was the experience like for you?
Okay, it was transitioning from a purely engineering background to something more of a business background. It could be sales or consulting or anything. Is is something that is not, I would say, quite easy, because as an engineer, you are very focused on the technical stuff, but you ignore a lot of the people skills, or you don't develop it really well, and your communication skills are also not quite up to scratch. So that is something I think anybody who wants to move from, who has been in an engineering field for a long time, or even for say 5 years or so, have to think about if they want to move into the business side of things, or as they progress in their engineering career, at some point they will go get into management. So this is something they really have to think about and equip themselves, constantly learn and equip themselves. So what was the biggest challenge to me was that the people skills and communication skills. Those are the two I would rate as quite important if you're moving. And that was the thing I found challenging initially.
And on top of that, right, because I believe actually many engineers actually do transition to more non-technical roles, and especially in terms of like management consulting lah. So actually I previously interviewed Jaren, who was in management consulting. So he was saying that actually engineering background, contrary to what most people believe, actually this did give him an edge. Especially if you are involved in management consulting for tech companies, because you really understand and appreciate the technology and the business itself. So for yourself, how has engineering really did give you an edge or helped you in the career path that you are on?
Okay, engineering helps you in the sense it helps you to think in a very methodical way. So it gives a structure to what you're learning. So yeah, that way that is correct. But generally speaking, in a tech industry, technology, especially you're talking about hardware, software technology, the skills required there are different. The knowledge that is required there is different from, say, a civil engineering or a mechanical engineering or an architect. So how exactly your engineering is going to help you in your sales role or in your business role is not dependent on what engineering you did or what technical skills you have. It helps in your thinking, in your learning, but I would say it is about ability to learn new things. That is key, and your attitude. Your attitude is important when it comes to business management. You need your people skills, you need your communication, and you need to have the right attitude. When you're a pure engineer, you can get by without great communication skills. I have worked with some very technically brilliant people who are not great at communicating, but they do excellent technical. So when it comes to business management or sales, marketing, the skills required are different. So I wouldn't say you need in engineering, it will definitely help you. It can help you. But as with anything, you need to keep learning.
But actually, you mentioned a lot about sales, I mean communication skills, right? So could you elaborate on like what kind of communication skills that perhaps actually a role like what you're doing requires? Yeah, like which aspect of it, is it communicating with people, like understanding perspective? Like what's the
Oh,
definition?
okay, I'll give an answer to you, but you have worked as a financial planner now, and you also said you started with an engineering background. So you transitioned yourself. So what kind of communication skills? What is your knowledge about, or what is your perspective? I would like to know your perspective. I'll also definitely give my own perspective on that.
Right. So, but anyways, thanks for the question. So, at least from my perspective, in terms of communication skills, is really understanding perspective. Um, what actually, so throughout my career, right, I actually spoken to like many different walks of life, and I realized that humans, or at least people, cannot be seen as numbers. Like
Yeah.
everyone has a unique story, and everyone has a unique viewpoint in life. And communication skills is really just stepping into the person's world and really empathizing and building rapport in that world with together with them. And perhaps once in a way you win their trust, that's when it's much easier to communicate your world and bring your world to them and really just see the that you know from their point, from from your point of view, bring that perspective over to their world. And I believe that is what good communication is. It's really firstly listening, okay, and being in their world. Then
Yeah.
once they feel that you are very inviting and you are very highly interested in their world, then that is when you can bring your world to their world, and perhaps maybe let them see what you see as well. Yeah, so I think that is what good communication skills is.
Yeah. You put it very well. Like it's putting yourself in the other person's shoe. That's exactly communication skill is. And also communication skill is very, very important when you want to lead people or when you want to mentor people also. And when you talk about leadership, it doesn't exist in some kind of a vacuum. When you're a leader, you have followers or people who follow you or listen to you. Similarly, as a leader, you also have to be a follower because there are a lot of ideas that will come from your team. So you need to be able to listen to them. So communication is essentially not just only telling what you want to tell, but also listening to other people, understanding their point of view, as you said, and then package that into package the whole thing, that what you want to say, what you got from your team, into a story that can draw the people together to achieve a common aim. So that is where communication is very, very helpful. That is within your team. And when it comes to communicating with the external stakeholders, it is about being concise, being to the point, and knowing who you're talking to. So you communicate only the relevant things to the relevant people. So that is also part of communication skills. That's because I've seen people who communicate things that are not required to one person, what they might have communicated. Like, for example, when you're in a sales role, you might be talking to the CEO, you might be talking to an end user. So when you talk to the CEO, you have to talk about the value proportion in terms of how it is going to help the organization, where it can save money, improve productivity. When you're talking to the end user, you have to talk about how it can help them do their work better. So the message is different. So communication skill is understanding what to communicate and when.
Oh, then I mean, that's a great insights, and
Yeah.
that just really sums up what great communicators do. I just wish that more I think this my reflections are, but I really wish that like more engineers would be great communicators. I think primarily because I feel that some engineers that I've seen are really very, very brilliant people. That just in a way been outshined by others because others learn how to actually put their ideas across more concisely and much more brilliantly than they do. And it's quite shame because like just imagine you work so hard all your life yet to have opportunities kind of like undercut because like you couldn't actually communicate the ideas through lah. So I just wish that more people would know this important.
Yeah, that is true, because it's not the ideas itself that drives people. It is how the ideas are conveyed to the people. Because if the people who don't have technical, or let us say people who don't have very good communication skills, but are very good technically, might feel hard done because others are getting the plaudits when they don't. But that is how the world works, because you can write a brilliant essay on a topic, say about global warming, but there could be an ad which runs for about 5 seconds and about 20 words or 10 or 12 words. That is more catchy and people remember that. So that is why communication is really, really important.
Okay, so but but I believe now because you are now an advisor for startups, helping them to expand and scale. I believe you have worked with many of these startups, and actually seen some who are more successful and those that are not as successful as them. Yeah. So firstly, what do you actually notice about the most consistent qualities that differentiates the ones that eventually grow and scale compared to the ones that don't find it as easy, or at least do not see much success as much as those that do?
Okay, the successful ones generally have a clarity in terms of what they want to achieve. So they probably don't have a vision. If they have a vision, it would be brilliant. It would be great. I'll give you an example. When I was with the startup Auto Synergy in the UK, it was first started as a one-room trader. So we started, like, I created a business strategic plan and started to import accessories and spares from China as well as from Eastern Europe. We grew revenues in the first 3 months. We grew exponentially. I would say, like, say if we're having 10K a month, we grew from 10K to say 40K in 3 months. But then we started to hit a glass ceiling. We went up to 45, then came back to 40. We are not moving up. So what was happening? So what I realized was that we are getting into competing products and spares that were competing with existing things we're selling. We are buying more competing products. So they were cannibalizing each other. So our sales was not going up. Our inventories were going high. So our net margins are dropping. So that is where I thought, okay, it is not just a strategic plan that is important. Then I had a brainstorming session with a consultant in UK. So at the end of that, it was a 2-day session. So at the end of that, I developed a vision which said one of our products in each automobile in the UK. So one of our product, each automobile. So it could be a bike, it could be a car, it could be a truck, van. So it is n number of vehicles, n number of transport items are there, like automobiles are there. So one of our product. Then on all these, what is a key seller? What is the best seller in each and every segment? So like in cars, what is it? Vans, what is it? Trucks, what is it? Then I was able to identify, and once I was able to identify those products, we were able to scale up, and then the revenue started to constantly go in an upward direction. So for any startup that needs to grow, it needs to have a good strategic vision of what they want to achieve. Even if they don't have a vision right at the start, they need to know what they want to achieve in terms of, say, 3 years, I need to have X number of customers, Y amount of revenue. So if that is at least there in the plan, they can work back and start doing things to achieve. But if they don't have a plan at all, okay, I want to grow. Okay, you want to grow from $1,000 this year to $1,100 next year. That's still growth, isn't it? If you want to grow, you need to quantify it. Growth can be just $1, $100, but do you want to grow by 1 and 100, or do you want to grow by tens of thousands of dollars? So you need to have a clear idea of what you want to do. And most importantly, some startups do fail in this. They don't have a market fit. They don't tested out the market fit of the product. So that is another thing that they need to really be clear on.
So, I actually, I back in SUTD, right? So we do so actually SUTD from where I'm from, the university, I think there are a lot of startups that actually started there. But actually a lot of them I don't I mean some of them I see the ones that actually are more successful, they like what you said, like they're very clear on like the impact that they want to deliver. So I mean back then when we had this club called Design Odyssey, so what they do is that there's a bunch of us that we pitch startup ideas and whatnot. But I remember my batch, none of them actually we eventually pursued or finished what we started. I think primarily because a lot of us we are trying to copy, like what you said, maybe we are trying to copy others that have already worked. So things like, let's say, card games or whatever not. I think in my university there's this Kodomo like card game. Then actually a lot of us we try to copy the idea in our startup, and we all flopped because we had no vision, we had no passion. And I think this what you said really rings true. And really, when upon reflection, I think that's true also.
Yeah, that is true, because people get very, I would say, seduced by the word startup. Because startup, they think, okay, I think there is some record which says that, say, probably about 99.98% of the startups fail. Something like, or say, or 98% of the startups fail, and say about only 0.1 or 2% of them really become unicorns. So people who get into startups or startup business, they don't have full understanding of what a startup is. They think it is just that you go and start something and it will magically grow. That doesn't happen. And even if they have very good idea behind the startup, good market fit, and then they know what they want to achieve. Okay, I want X amount of revenue in 3 years, this amount of market penetration. They can have that, but they can still fail if they don't have very good financial management. They don't manage their cash flows very well. They could sell a lot of things, or typically what tech startups do is they give free trial runs. They spend a lot of time and energy and money on that, but that doesn't turn into a sale. So they leak money, they drain money in things like that. So they can have very good idea of what they want to achieve, but they still fail because they don't have a very good, clear plan of how they're going to achieve. So they need a very good sales plan. So sales plan is, they need to identify their target markets, then the target segments, and within the target segments, who are the key players they want to focus on. And let us put it this way, like let's say that I've developed a banking solution that would be very useful for banks. Okay, I can take it to a very small bank, And I could say there are many small banks in the Asia Pacific region. I can go and sell to say 10, 20 of them over the next 2, 3 years. Okay. And I could have say 1 million in revenue, for example. But if instead of that, if I focus my energies on the top banks in the region like DBS, OCBC, and few other banks, I would still be expending the same amount of effort for the next 2, 3 years. But instead of 1 million, my revenues could be 5 times that or 10 times that. So a startup has to have a clear plan as to what the target is, how they are going to do it, and what the segment is.
Well, yeah, so besides your pursuits for like business and I mean really hearing your passion for it, I also noticed that behind there's your shelf is a lot of books, and I saw that you are actually an avid reader as well lah. Where you not only really read to improve your skills in like leadership, management, sales, but you quite interestingly enough, you also read a lot about history, especially about your home country in India. Which actually remarked that really helped you to gain a new perspective that perhaps maybe traditional self-help books do not give lah. So I'm just curious lah, what are one or two things, interesting things that you actually picked up through your reading of such history books, that means that's very different from like business, leadership, and sales kind of like related information.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Kenny. And reading is something that is really part of me. I read about history. Apart from management books, I read about history, philosophy, and many other things. So when it comes to history, there is a saying that says history is written by winners. So history is always a narrative and a perspective of the winner. And when you read about history, not only about India, I've read history about many other places, also many other countries. There are different narratives to the same history, to the same event. So I would say that it is very, very difficult to distill what actually happened in history by reading different history books. You can have a sense of what might have happened from reading different things. But there are also a lot of history. The key thing when you're reading history is to look at evidence. Does the evidence back what the author says? So when you look at it that way, you can see a lot of history is just stories. It's imagination of the writer, a lot of things. And there are some history books which talk in terms of facts, and you can relate that even the facts that are mentioned in that book to events that are recorded by others also. So history is very fascinating in the sense it helps us to understand what has happened long before our time. And another thing history always teaches is that what has happened will always recur in a different form. We humans, we think we'll avoid mistakes, but mistakes keep repeating, and that is the whole essence of being human. I think like we learn, we make mistakes, and typically in a management sense, we would say that, oh, we made a mistake, we learned from that and moved on. But historically, we learn little, we keep repeating the mistakes.
But but because you quite interestingly enough, you said that people often make the same mistakes again lah, and let's say in terms of, let's say, your time in leadership, mentoring young engineers or maybe sales team alike, how do you, or at least encourage people to actually learn from their mistakes more often than to repeat it? Do you have like certain accountability systems, or let's say certain practices that you feel that will reduce such mistakes from happening?
Okay, mistakes from happening. Okay, I would I would tell anybody, don't worry about mistakes. You are bound to make mistakes. But the thing is to acknowledge them. You have to know that you have made a mistake, acknowledge that, and learn from it. Learn from it. It doesn't mean that, okay, I made this mistake, I will not do this particular step because of this particular step, I made this mistake. No, when you're learning from your mistakes, it's about learning from the people around you. Just because you are leading a team doesn't mean that you know all the answers. There are a lot of things you need to ask people. You need to have people who are good at things that you're not good at. So that is something everybody needs to have in that team. And if it is mistake, acknowledge the mistake. First thing is acknowledging the mistake. Then asking for help. Ask people how you can improve what you have done. Because it's not only it doesn't have to be a mistake to learn. You could have done something, then you on reflection, you thought, okay, if I had done this way, it could have turned out much better. So that is still something that you want, when you reflect on, you can improve yourself. So mistakes or reflections are ways to improve yourself. Don't worry about making a mistake. Only thing is, don't make catastrophic mistakes, which you may regret. That's it.
I see. But but what about repeated mistakes? I believe people make mistakes once, of course, it's okay, just learn from it. But do you see a trend, let's say in the workplace as well, that people often make like repeated mistakes and whatnot, and how do you actually mentor them out of it also?
Okay, that does happen, but the key, not the key, why people make repeated mistakes. I'm not an expert on that, but my perspective on that is, when people are not having an open mindset or a curiosity-driven mindset, they repeat mistakes. Because when you're curious, when you're open to other ideas, you learn, you see the best in people, you learn and improve yourself. But when you have a very closed or non-growth mindset, I will put it that way, or what is that term? That is the term, I can't remember that. One is a growth mindset, other is a limited mindset. So when you have a limited mindset, you look at things as through your perspective only. When you can't look at things from a different perspective, you can't learn. Because first thing is, you would you try to disown your mistakes. When you disown your mistakes, you can't learn. You keep repeating the mistakes. So I think curiosity and open mindset is very important for learning and not repeating the mistakes.
So yeah, so anyways, Karthik, I'm sure the audience will also love to know about you more as a person, and your journey to where you are right now.
Yeah.
And as someone who has been in the sales and business development field for many years, I'm very, very sure that you have faced and overcame many challenges and crises to be where you are right now. And what you said, we learn from our mistakes, and we are really the product that we are today is really built on the mistakes that we have made and the lessons we have learned. So,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious, what were some of the crises that you faced in your long career that really stood out to you and actually you grew a lot from?
Crisis. That is something, okay. Okay, crisis is, I would say, the point where I came into my role at Teledata in my previous organization as heading the sales and marketing. So we had a market product introduction into the market about a couple of years before I joined, which had gone down badly. So the crisis was, there was lower the product, and the product had a low brand perception, and the customers were not very enthused about the product. And generally speaking, the customer engagement was very low. So that was a crisis, and the key to driving people through that was changing the attitude of people. So changing from a cost culture to value culture, that is one of the most important things to add it. That improve the situation. Generally, crisis, I would say crisis doesn't happen on a day-to-day basis, but crisis happen because a lot of small things we could have done every day, we didn't do, that built up so we have a crisis at some point in time. So it is the small neglected actions that actually drive the crisis in any organization. So I would say it is important to, okay, I'll put it, all management books or management gurus will say, you have to see what is important, do that, or urgent, but urgent, not important, delegate that. And if we're not urgent, not important, delete it. And there are so 4 quadrants. Yeah, the important things you need to do. The not so important things are things that can turn important some point in future. So it is not that you can just delegate and let it go. You just still need to delegate it and keep track of what is happening. So there is nothing, when you need to do something, it may not be important today, but if it is needed, it can become important tomorrow. So it depends on your focus, on what are the things your organization is getting done, are doing now, and wants to do in future. So what it wants to do in future drives what becomes important today, and what is not so important today might become important sometime in future. So this it's a very fine balance. You can't say X 25% is important, 25% is not important, the rest is in between. There's no mathematical formula like that. It takes experience to know what you need to focus on, what you need to delegate, what you need to keep track on.
But I'm just curious also, has there ever been a time whereby a lot of this small neglected action led to like something big that happened before, or do you usually like know that when it happens, you need the problem before it turns big?
No, if I say that I always knew this is going to become a problem, then I'll be the Superman. Okay, or the oracle of everything, oracle of process. I'll know everything. So no, it doesn't happen that way. There are things I have neglected. Everybody has neglected that has turned into problems later on, because you have only a finite amount of time, finite amount of actions you can take. Some things still can fall through the gaps, but the thing is, how do you recover? So once you find out there's an issue, then try to sort it out immediately. So that is where your experience skills and communication skills, people skills come into play. It is impossible to anticipate what the future problems are going to be.
But apart from what you have shared, in your career, what are some of the mistakes that you have made in the past, or lessons you have learned that you wish that you would tell your younger self? Because I'm sure that actually, as maybe the you back then, younger, more ambitious, energetic, but perhaps maybe a little bit more rash and like spirited, versus the wiser and more collected person that you are right now. What are some of the lessons that you wish that you would tell the person that you were back then?
That's a great question. Because when you're young, you think you can solve everything. But as you grow up, you get more experience, you gain a little bit more wisdom. You think there are battles you should pick and choose. You don't have to fight all your battles. There are some things are just best ignored. This is especially true in today's age where you get information left, right, and center on social media. And as everybody knows, probably 99% of those information that comes through that is unverified at best, and some of them are downright. So don't don't think you need to address each and every problem that you see around your work. Just do what you can do and do to the best of your ability. And the second one is, I would say to my younger self, when you're young, when you're under 30, invest and save a lot more. So when you're young, you generally think is, oh, you're starting out, anything is possible. You can do whatever. But you need to invest and save. So later on, when you have to take a break or when you want to take a pivot in your career or do something else, you have the luxury of time as well as the money to do what you want to do. Those are the two key things I would say to myself. And that's something I would tell all youngsters.
Oh, interesting. But thanks for sharing for your insights and really learning a lot from you right now. And I think for my perspective, right, what I sometimes in retrospect, there's always like lessons that you always tell your younger self.
Yeah.
But to some extent, right, I realized that actually in life, right, it's not always about having all the answers also. I of course I wish that I would have told my younger self to be more confident back then, or to be a lot more outspoken. But I realized that I have to go through that pain first. Then I really understood the value of the lessons. It's like sometimes your parents always tell you, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And sometimes you take it for granted until years later when you connect the dots, then you realize that why they mention it is because probably they went through that pain. Yeah. So so actually, while I think for me lah, at least I feel that at some point of time you do have to experience the pain. Then you really learn from it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think another key thing I would say is keep learning. So keep learning new things. It's not that you have to broaden your learning. You don't learn only what is related to your work or career. You need to, there is a lot of things that you can learn about the world at large. There are different subjects, areas to explore, learn. Because when you learn different things, you'll be able to pick up things that seem unrelated, but you would subconsciously pick up those things and you'll be able to apply it to your working world or in your family life or different things. So learning is another thing that is really, really important when you're young. I've come across quite a few people who think that they're done graduation. That's it. They don't have to learn anymore. So that's a very limiting mindset. So that is another thing I would say everybody has to be very cautious about. Don't ever stop learning. It's not about, okay, I'll do it after 6 months or a year. Just pick up, read something, keep reading. It doesn't even have to make any sense to you now. Just keep reading things and it will all come together. Like, I think, was it Steve Jobs who said, you cannot connect your dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So the dots will connect. So when you look back, you'll know which helped you back.
I see. And actually, because of your years of I believe, as a leader, you also mentored like many like sales teams and young engineers. So I'm just curious lah, what are some of the biggest leadership lessons that you have learned along the way managing groups of people and leading them to where they are right now, like grooming them to become much better than themselves?
Okay, leadership is, I think leadership when it comes, I think Peter Drucker put it this way, and I think he sums it up the best. He said, leaders have willing followers. You don't become a leader by just a title or just because you have a team. When you have a team that actually looks up to you, then you are a leader, and you're somewhere going on the ladder of a leader, because it's a constantly evolving journey. Leadership, it is not a endpoint, because you need to learn a lot of things on the go, because things change rapidly, and the pace of change is quite high now. Say the pace of change, if something was done, say 150 years ago, that was done for the next 50 years. 100 years ago, it was done for the next 20 years. Now it is done only for the next 2 months. So the leadership is about learning, listening, and most importantly, communicating the right thing to the right people in the right way. That is what leadership is. And it is not that you learned it, okay, leadership is communicating. It's about listening. It's about having followers. No, leadership doesn't end that way. These things keep evolving. These change. People follow you for different reasons now. So how you need to understand why they follow you. Where is it? Is it your idea? Is it your execution, the way you execute things, or is it the way you mentor, or it is the way you communicate? For different things, different people, it is different things. So you need to understand people and how people respond to you to be a better leader, and you need to constantly learn what you're doing right, what you can improve. So probably sometimes it is always good to have a peer or somebody you really trust to to feed ideas of each other. That is not only for a leader, but everybody should have somebody with whom they can discuss ideas, discuss anything under the sun. I have few friends with whom I can discuss anything under the sun. So when you have people like that, they help you to grow.
But actually, because I mean, you seem like a very welcoming leader, and I believe anyone under you are very lucky to have you, lah, because it's easy for them to communicate ideas with you. But actually, because I do have like some engineering friends, whom the leader is not as welcoming. Like, as in, sometimes when they want to propose ideas, they are a little bit more closed off and they are more task oriented, which means is that you do this X, and they feel very stressed because like they feel that overworked and also not appreciated. So do you have any advice for these group of people, in terms of learning how to communicate better to their bosses, or should they just find another mentor that is much better?
It's not really a yes or no type of answer. I can't say that they should find a better mentor, or because why does their leader or boss say that? Is it because the company culture is like that? If that is the case, best to move on to a new role. But if it is not, then you can ask the boss, okay, you are asking me to do X, Y, Z, but I think if I do this way, it might be easier, or it might be better. It might turn out better. Can we discuss this? You can ask your boss. It depends on the rapport you have. I know that we have been doing this way. Can we explore this way? So instead of feeling, why is my boss always doing this? I feel frustrated. Instead of feeling frustrated, talk to your boss and ask him or her, can you do it in a different way? What do you think? Bounce an idea. Like, I don't think anybody will say no. Most of them will welcome that idea. They probably are what is that? They have their plates full. Okay, so they don't have that time to think about many different ways. And instead of delegating and telling their people to do things. They think, okay, you do this, it'll be easier. Probably that is their line of thought. They think if I give them some guidance, they will do it, it'll be easier for them. But if you don't ask the question, you will think the boss is trying to or giving only instructions. He's not letting me do things my way. But if you ask your boss, can I do it this way? Why can I take the liberty to do it this way? I'll give you the output. And you can have a discussion, and he or she listens to that. They might, I would say, almost everybody would say, that's a great idea. You do it your way. And once you're done that, next time they'll say, okay, yeah, hey, Kenny, can you help me with this? I know you did a great job last time. Can you help me with this one? And that's how it moves on. But if you feel frustrated, you don't voice out your concern, they will think, okay, Kenny is not asking me or telling me, giving me any input. So let me just guide him. Kenny, do it this way, and submit the output to me. So it's about communication. Communication, it's not only communicating to your peers and others, but to your boss and to everybody. Communication is key to everything.
Okay, so thanks for sharing those leadership lessons, and I believe the audiences can definitely learn a lot from you, and I believe Karthik, I believe the audiences would love to also hear your more specific to your career in sales, business development, and consulting, which is really an alternative path for an engineering background. I believe actually some of the audiences would love to actually explore that field eventually. And they will be probably curious as to what are the steps actually required to get there. So I mean, for yourself, right, personally, how do you actually I believe you actually briefly touched upon earlier in the podcast, but specifically, how do you actually prepare yourself for this role? Because sometimes within the, let's say, maybe if you are going for a new job role, right, probably you might want to have experience in terms of, let's say, business or whatever not, but sometimes the engineer is more technical. So how does one actually prepare him or himself if they want to actually get into that field? Is there any kind of interview preparation that they need to do? What kind of skill sets, experience that's actually usually required for such roles in such companies?
Okay, interview to move from engineering to a management role. Okay, interview related, I think that is a totally, I think, slightly different perspective, because what to tell in an interview. If you don't mind, I can probably give you what they should do, to some pointers to how they can succeed in that new role. Will that be okay with you?
Yeah, I mean that would be great also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when they're moving from a purely engineering background to a sales, business development, or a business background, like I said previously, it's about people skills, communication skills. That is another thing that is very, very important. But these things take some time. They don't learn it immediately. It'll take some few years for them to transition and then learn. Most important is that they ask for a guidance from the organization, or ask the organization to pair them up with a mentor. Ask for mentorship. Ask their own boss, can you put me in touch with somebody who can help me to improve my communication skills or improve my presentation skills? Yeah, presentation skills is another key part in that. How to present information to people, differently to different people. So that is another thing. So the most important is to have a mentor. So to have a mentor, what are the things you can do? You can go out of your own way and find a mentor, and that is one way to help. Then you need to find a time for yourself and the mentor to help you. And or the other way is ask within the organization. So when you ask within the organization, they can either put you up with a mentor within the organization, or they can send you to courses that can help you hone your skills. So I think finding a mentor or asking help from the organization is really very important if you want to succeed in that, into your new role from transitioning out from engineering into a business side role.
And I also very curious also lah, because I believe a lot of people are actually finding the right mentors. So how can, let's say if you are a junior engineer, right? How can they actually because actually I also saw like you wrote some LinkedIn article on like how to actually do like a cold email, like cold reach out. And I believe actually a lot of young engineers would love to actually reach out to mentors to actually learn from them. So what do you suggest is the approach, that they can actually adopt to actually, gain that mentorship opportunity? Because I believe you have to give with, and I mean not just ask but also give as well. So what is your perspective on how people can actually successfully gain good mentorship?
Successfully gain good mentorship? Yeah, that's a good question. That I think so. One thing is the person who's asking for mentorship, they should know exactly in what area they want to be mentored. They have to be very clear, and I want to be mentored in my communication skills or my leadership skills or whatever it is. And then approach somebody and tell them, I saw that you have done XYZ work, and I think I can learn a lot from you. Would you be open to mentoring me on certain days or whatever it is? On a face-to-face or on Zoom or something like that. It is again, this is something that's a very explanatory short email you send that shouldn't have more than say 60 words or so. Then if they say yes, then follow up with that and see how we can help yourself in that.
Actually, speaking of like asking for mentorship and opportunities, right? I think one thing that can be useful that the audiences might adopt is really also I learned it from this this business investor called Alex Hormozy. So
Yeah.
actually, what he says that the best way to actually ask an opportunity is to actually give first. So it's always about what kind of value can I provide for you, deliver that value, and then ask for an opportunity. So for example, let's say if you're talking about mentorship, perhaps maybe is to say, hey, actually I've seen your work that you're doing. Actually I have some few ideas lah that perhaps maybe I could help you improve maybe in terms of your marketing or whatever not. Would
Yeah.
you like to find out more about it lah? So actually really give a lot of value upfront first and see if you know that they can have opportunity to learn from them also. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think that really helps also. This is a very new way of exchanging value lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kenny, that is true. That is the way normally when you're sending up cold outreach or a business mail. Yeah, that's how it works. And probably when you want somebody to do when you want to do business with somebody and all that. But mentorship also, it can help. But when you're an engineer transitioning into a business or sales, uh, it depends on what you can offer to the mentor. So that's a very fine balance. But generally, I think if you ask for mentorship, most people, if they have the time, they wouldn't say no to it. Because I think this value driven is, yeah, everybody says that there should be a value to each and every interaction. But the value is not about just uh, you give me something, I'll give you something. Some people just like the pleasure of actually mentoring somebody, because there are studies which show that people who help have their endorphins levels go up, and people who witness that help also have an equal amount of endorphins than the person who receives that help. So helping people feel happy to help. It is not that it has to be always a value driven. People will be happy to help if you ask them nicely and politely. That is my experience, I would say.
Actually, I interesting enough, I had a podcast interview with one other engineering leader. So he was saying the idea of really paying it forward. He said that actually in life, right, sometimes it's really about giving without asking much in return, and eventually it will come back to you. Which actually he did experience it a lot in his life. And I think I myself also like I sometimes when people ask, I always try to give help whenever it's necessary. I think it's not so much towards like eventually, like having that return in value, but I just really believe that the world can be a lot more happier and abundant if people really help each other.
Yeah.
Not sure about your perspective on those.
Yeah, that's definitely what I said is closely follows that, because you pay it forward, or you can't do every action with an expectation of a return. If every action you do is with an expectation of a return, there is always this kind of keeping score of things. When you keep score of things, then you're always you're never free. You always feel you're under some kind of pressure. You always expect something. You always give something with an expectation. If you just give without expectation, you're very free. You are happy that you gave something. Whether it comes back or not doesn't matter. But when you have that mindset, whatever you give out will come back at some form or the other at some point in life.
So, anyways, Karthik, also, since I believe actually right now in the economy, at least we are actually facing a recession. And I believe there's a lot of fears lah about job security in terms of massive layoff, especially from tech companies as well. So in your at least your humble opinion, what advice do you have for younger engineers, people who are not only trying to survive in this period, but really looking towards thriving and promoting during this period? Do you have any advice for them to actually really do well despite the situation right now?
I would say the only that not only the key thing I would say is, don't talk about recession and this is happening there, that is happening here, this company is laid off, Google has laid off so many, or Meta has laid off so many. Okay, these things happen. These are things out of your control. Where you are working now, you are in Singapore, you are working with some organization. How's the organization functioning? Do you like the work you do? Focus on what you are doing, and generally understand in what context your business, your organization is working under. Try to get a perspective of that. And then beyond that, if there are some new projects or something exploratory that the company wants to do, if possible, volunteer for that as part of the team. As if you're a junior engineer or junior person, you will not be tasked with the whole thing, but there will be somebody doing that. We can be part of the team, volunteer yourself to be part of that team. Keep yourself engaged with the future of the organization, not just the current status. So that way you become an important integral member of the future of the organization. That's one way. But another thing is, like I said earlier, always invest and save a lot when you're in. So when there is a time you need to take a break, take a pivot, or do something else, you have the cushion to do that. So so basically, when you have the cushion, even if there is a recession going on, you're not worried about it. And when you're not worried about it, you land jobs. you'll get a new job, even if you're fired from one. So when you're worried, it gets more difficult to get a new job. When you're not worried, if you don't care whether you, I wouldn't say you don't care, but it will not affect you badly, then it is easier for you to get a new job.
Oh, I mean that's actually what I usually preach to my clients as well lah. It's really about also having a stash of money in the rainy days. Really because some unexpected things might happen. Yeah, and of course not really over trading, investing, and also spending as well. So that at least during the rainy days you have something to tide you over as well lah. So at every juncture of your life is also about maintaining status quo, like business as usual, and not really affecting by the noises lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. What you said is perfectly relevant, and I think it is very, very accurate to the case.
Yeah, but Karthik, actually, you mentioned actually one point which I would like to add on, to the audience is really what I learned from another engineering leader. So you said something along the lines of being very involved in the company, the future of the company, right? So quite interestingly enough, one other engineering leader says that you have to really volunteer more in the organization. Let's say if you are doing X number of roles, right? Can I actually volunteer to do more? Maybe be really part of the team, like what you said, like be part of more projects. That is really outside of your job scope, but actually gives you opportunity to not only showcase your skills or build your skills, but also show that you are very vested in the company's organization. So it's very hard for them, employers to not appreciate that kind of that enthusiasm also. That automatically makes you a much more valuable person. Yeah, not what your perspective on those?
Yeah, that is definitely true, because when you volunteer out of your job role, the management people in that organization know that, they understand, they recognize that, even though they might not say immediately, verbalize that immediately. They do keep an eye on people who go beyond their job and do things that are helpful for the organizations in the future. So that makes them more, I would say, stickable to the organization, or invested in the future of the organization. So those people are highly valued.
And Karthik, as we actually wrap up the podcast today, okay, do you have actually any last piece of advice for the audiences out there, who are watching this, especially young engineers who are really looking to actually grow in their career and really live the desired life that they want?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is that I think it will be rehash of what I've said before. Thing is, keep learning constantly. You need to learn about your area of work and many other things. What it is, it's up to you to decide what you want to learn. You need to have interest outside your job, outside your work. That is how you keep yourself fresh. If all you do, all you learn, all you read is about work, at some point you'll just burn out. You need to learn things that are totally outside your work. That will definitely help you in your work, but you don't know how it's going to help you. And like I said, pick your battles. You don't have to win all the battles. You don't have to be part of all the battles either. Even when you are part of the battle, you don't have to win it. You try to explain your position. If the other party doesn't want to understand or acknowledge that, just let it go. It's not the end of the world. So pick your battles. If you don't win the battle, just let it go. It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it's about being happy and do what makes you happy. So everybody knows what makes them happy. So you invest time to do what makes you happy. So that is different for different people. So it is inside it's some part of it, what makes you happy lies within the work, some part lies outside the work. So how do you bridge them, keep them together is up to you. You'll evolve your own style in time, but the key thing is keep doing things that make you happy.
Oh, thanks so much for all the wisdom, and I really learned a lot from you through this conversation. So, last question to you is that where can actually the audiences best reach and connect with you for advice and opportunities?
Yeah. I can be reached through my LinkedIn profile or my email ID too. You have my email ID. So it is Ned Karthik, NEDKARTHIK @gmail.com. They can reach either through my LinkedIn profile or my email ID.
All right, so let's as we wrap up the episode today, really thank Karthik today for being such an awesome guest on the show. He actually really provided a very fresh perspective on a different career path that most people would most engineers would potentially explore in the future, and hope whatever he shared actually inspired all of you guys. So anyways, thank you so much, Karthik, for being on this show today.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you for having me on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Okay, awesome.